Hello, welcome to my video analysis. I'm really excited to be at this point because that means I'm almost done with my program. Um, and it's been really cool to look back and really insightful to look back and see all the work that I've done to get to this point and also refresh myself on all kinds of ideas that I've gained through this program. Um, so you're going to see a series of videos, whether it be book talks that I made a while ago, whether it be um, practicum videos of lessons that I filmed, student teaching videos of lessons that I filmed, even some videos with my parents because they helped me with some of the lessons that I did for planning and instruction. So I'm really excited to be sharing these and going through them myself. All right, so I wanted to add this video from the beginning of my program, just kind of highlighting some of the doubts and fears that I had in the beginning when I first started teaching and how I was overwhelmed and how, yes, I am still overwhelmed, but I have a lot of confidence in what I can achieve. And that was really meaningful to me to see that video and where I am now. I am a little bit overwhelmed by the possibilities that I have, which is great, and the options I have going forward, but it does seem like a big responsibility. I do think that I need to just get in the classroom and try it out and see what works for me. And for this artifact, I decided to pick a few books that I actually have on my bookshelf at home and just start creating a bookshelf for my classroom, a potential bookshelf for my classrooms. And with the themes in mind that we've been talking about from the various articles we've been reading. So from the What is Culture article, looking at them so I don't get the names wrong, and the Transforming Deficit Myths, and then Nice is Not Enough. So to get started, I read these two books right here and right here. So this is Between the World and Me by Ta-Nehisi Coates and Invisible Man by Ralph Ellison. I read these actually in high school, and then I read them again in college. And they were probably the most transformative books that I've ever read. All right, so what you just saw was a video from the beginning of my program about books that I would add to my classroom library. And, I really do think that that's an idea that I'll continue in my student teaching. I did have a classroom library. I want to emphasize it more, and I did have a book of the week, but I did have some trouble keeping up with that. I'm going to try to continue to keep up with that, but I want to give the students maybe more of a responsibility in terms of completing some more book talks and creating goals to read more. I didn't do that in student teaching as much as I would have liked, but I did have a classroom library with those books that I mentioned. I'll also be talking about in the next segments I'll be book talking Serpent King, which I did book talk in my student teaching experience. I'll be comparing a lot to my student teaching experience because I feel like that was a culmination of all these ideas. But I book talked it in student teaching, but I had forgotten about this book talk video. So I'm going to add that and maybe try to incorporate some more of those book talks and more independent reading and book love as well in my first teaching job, because that's not something I did a ton of in student teaching. All right, so the book I'm going to be talking about is The Serpent King by Jeff Zentner. So I think the most important thing to say about this book is about the three main characters of this book. So there's Dill, there's Travis, and there's Lydia. And they each are kind of they're misfits, but they're all friends. And even though they're pretty different from each other, but they find out that they're more similar to each other than you might think. Um, and they're each dealing with family issues, identity issues as related to the things that have gone on in their family. So they're each struggling with how can I be my own person and still be connected to my family, or do I want to still be connected to my family? Um, and so they're each questioning this, but they have each other to lean on during these times. Um, I think there's also an element of like figuring out what to do with loneliness as well. But it's a really cool book. It takes place in the South. Um, and I think the setting is really awesome, and it's the three perspectives of the kids. Okay, so what you're about to see now is a video from my practicum experience before student teaching. So this was the fall, not of 2022, but of 2021, before I took a break from the program. So this was a while back now, and I think I do a good job in this segment. This was a lesson specifically about we were doing a virtual museum tour of the Holocaust Museum in DC. So I think I do a good job of explaining the assignments and also going through with students what an informative text is and proposing questions to them as well. Now they were answering some questions about the virtual museum that they went through on their laptops or Chromebooks. And I think what I could do and what I would say for the video following that I'll add on to in the next video is I could definitely give more students, not students, but like give more examples before I set them free to go do things. Because something I notice in both my practicum and student teaching is that I ask if students have any questions, but hoping that they will acknowledge that they do, but sometimes they don't. So usually I go around in small groups and check, but I want to make sure I give a full class example of what I mean before I set them free to do what they want. By do what they want, I mean do the assignment. Okay. So, y'all, we're doing we're in the informational text unit. So what is an informational text? I want to hear the gossip.
What gossip?
You're just whispering Christian, right? Yeah. Yep.
Like a writing piece that gives information?
Yeah. Yeah, and we looked at the informational text features, right? Like publication title, subheadings, pictures, and then captions for those pictures, those kinds of things. And then what is a museum? Okay, tell me more.
In one place.
In one place.
Like an actual museum? Like a place museum?
No.
Christian, what do you recognize?
A museum is like a place where you can go to look back in the past.
Yeah, exactly. So it's usually revolving around some event in history. Okay, anyone have anything to add to that? Okay, so how is a museum an informational text? Hold on one second. What's that?
Stuff that was like in the past or just historical and like it just gives information about them.
Yeah, exactly. Justin, you want to add it?
Yeah, I was gonna say it shares historical information.
Yeah, there you go. So the book that y'all are reading, Night, So this author, he was one of the founding members of this museum. Has anyone been to the museum in DC? All right, so this is my second video that I added from my practicum experience, and it is pretty crazy. I didn't mention in the last video, but that we're wearing masks during this, so that adds an extra layer of difference from my practicum experience to my student teaching experience, where COVID really was barely mentioned. So yeah, so I would say again with this assignment, they were still in the informational text unit, and I was giving them an idea for a reading strategy. It says I, do, and so, and I think this would be a time when an example, a teacher example, would be really appropriate, and maybe a I do example, and then we do and you do. That kind of process I need to do more of, and I know that about myself, but that's been a continuing issue. I do think that I improved upon it, and you'll see that in my student teaching videos, but that is something that I've noticed. I do think, though, that my article choices and my decisions about what lessons I want to do are creative, and they always have been creative. I think it's the breaking down what I want from the student is an important aspect to the teaching. It's the teaching. So, all right, so you have a worksheet in front of you. It's the it says, I say, and so chart. And so you're going to be reading this article. I'll give you like 5 to 10 minutes to read it, and then work in pairs to fill out this chart. So a reading strategy is basically, have y'all done a KWL chart? Like what you know, what you want to know, and then, what you learn from something you read. So reading strategy is basically just a way to dive deeper into what you're reading, okay? So there's going to be questions on the side, the far, left-hand side of the chart, and so you'll read those, and then you're going to write what it says, what the article says, and give textual evidence for what, to answer the question, and then you're going to say what you know about it, and then you're going to combine. This part can be a little bit confusing, so I can help with this part. But you're going to combine what the text says with what you know to come up with the answer. And it doesn't have to be like a direct answer, it's more of like what conclusion are you drawing from what the text says and what you know. Okay? So does that make sense? Everybody? All right, so this was a fun time in my program experience. So you're about to watch me teaching my parents a lesson on if Beale Street could talk, and we're talking about mood and tone in the text, but it was an introduction activity to the text, so we listened to some songs from the score of the movie, and we gathered what tone and mood is from what the tone and mood was for the book through the movie score. And we did an activity with that, word cloud activity with words that we came up with that the song invoked in us. And I did the activity as well, so I think that was a good addition to a good add-on to what I was saying earlier about showing what an example of the activity is. So this instruction was for planning and instruction. I didn't have a class at this point to do these lessons with, but my parents and friends thankfully helped me out. Word cloud that you all submitted all your words to that you thought of this song, and it came up as a word cloud, and I'll present it. So we have, these are your words here. The peaceful garden, graceful, peace, somber, hopeful, move forward. Oh, I like that one. constructed, but also the word Eden gives that idea because we have the biblical Eden, Garden of Eden. But then Harlem, so that's a place in New York. That's a city in New York. And so Harlem is connected also to the Harlem Renaissance and a place of like cultural rebirth and music. And so they're saying, so this gives us an idea of maybe where the story is taking place. So, and how the characters feel about Harlem, for example. Okay. All right. So that would be kind of the mood of that song. All right, so you're about to watch one of my student teaching videos. And what makes this different from all the other videos is that all the responsibility of this class is on me, and that's not something that you see in the other videos, either with my parents or during practicum. All the planning, all the instruction, all the grading, all the follow-up was all on me. So you see a lot more detail in these lesson plans than you did in the practicum lesson plans. It was all planned by me, and so you just see a lot more of the little details, like, are we going to be working in pairs or small groups? Are we going to be doing a whole class discussion next? Do you have the handout that you needed? Is your technology working? Oh, and then what, you weren't here yesterday, what did you miss? What do I need to catch you up on? Those types of things. And timers, I got better at timers for these assignments as well, and leading whole group discussions. I also had a checklist. This is a peer editing assignment for the poetry project at the beginning of the semester. So they were doing some peer editing. Presented to people in my class, like 5 people. Alright. And I'm the one they're looking at, they're not looking at you. Alright, okay, so today we're gonna do some peer editing of your summatives. Okay, so you have the sheet in front of you. Alright, so you're gonna be looking for your partner. Does it have a theme sentence? Paragraph 1, paragraph 2, concluding sentence. I'm not expecting you to have all this stuff today, but just this is a checklist, and so your partner can give you some feedback on what you did.
I didn't get this.
You didn't get one? I'm sorry. I'll give you this one. Good one. Okay. Thanks, bye. All right, and then there's a section for the creative poetry assignment. And then I put a note, minimum requirements, that's what that is. All right. So 16 lines or 40 words, depending on what kind of poem you decide to do. Make sure you've written the theme at the top, and then you have one figurative language device that you've used in the poem. And then for optional points, it's a paragraph reflection of it. And then other proofread for grammar and spelling mistakes. All right. So this is what I'll be looking at when I grade them. Okay. So make sure you pay attention to this. But we're gonna do probably like 15 minutes of looking at your summatives with a partner. And I did random ones again, sorry, but it is what it is. Alright, but some people, there are a lot of people not here. So, whose partner is not here? Raise your hand. Kelly? Alright, who else? Alright, Isaiah and Kelly are working together. Okay, so Isaiah, you can move from here. And then anybody else we've got? Anyone see their partner? Okay. Alright, go ahead and move to work with your partner. And you're gonna fill out your sheet here. Have your partner fill it out for you. Does that make sense? Because they're looking at your stuff. Alright, so I wanted to add this video from the beginning of my program amidst the videos of towards the end of my program because I think it shows growth in that I'm able to have those harder conversations I was concerned about in the beginning of my program. And I did those illustrated chapter assignments. I did those assignments that I talked about and that I got ideas from my peers. And so I realized that I can have those conversations. It just takes some trust. So I'm going to explain in the next video about what this lesson was, that I felt like I was able to do this. But this video from the beginning of my practicum is illustrating the growth that I had in my student teaching. Hi, I wanted to talk about Genesis Begins Again in relation to the other articles that we read for this week. And I think originally in my discussion post, I had wanted to ask the questions. I have them pulled up right here. I wanted to ask the questions. What do you think accounts for the racial disparity in the Farmington Acres neighborhood in this story? And why do you think Troy's parents have forced him to read about Black history, but Genesis' parents have not? And I think through some comments that I got from other students in this class, I think those are, the overall questions that we want to be asking. And maybe those questions can be asked directly like that in a college classroom setting. But I think that it really needs to be, these issues needs to be brought about in a different way. And for because of the younger audience. And I think that, I think my classmates had mentioned illustrating each chapter. All right, so this last video of my student teaching is a video where we're having a discussion about Lord of the Flies, but we're comparing it to an article, a New York Times article. Specifically, we're talking about different lenses, critical lenses to read novels through. So with those critical lenses, we looked at the socioeconomic lens. In particular, social class lens is how I framed it for this novel, Lord of the Flies. And how does social class play into, and social hierarchy play into the novel, and how is it that reflected also in society? And I think that I did a good job of having a tougher discussion and about heavier topics, and this was not something that I felt super comfortable with doing, but I do feel like I managed it in this setting because I had built up trust over time with these students, and I do think that it went pretty well. They were latching on to what I was saying, and so I think the discussion went well. We were comparing a article of integration of schools in terms of socioeconomic status, various socioeconomic statuses combining. So the schools, like lower income students mixing with higher income students, and how would that work? And how does that play out in the book as Jack, a more powerful leader, working with Piggy? How does that work? And how could that play out in a positive way? But how could it also play out in a negative way, and why? So that's what we were talking about, and I got some good responses from students, so that made me happy. If the boys represented a greater variation of social classes, what would the social structure look like? So, bringing in the article, some people want to combine these schools, all right? So, they're trying to create greater social variation in these schools. What would that social structure look like in a school? If you had a school with people from upper class, wealthier students, and students who didn't have as much money, what would that look like? These are kind of tough questions, but would it be positive or negative? You think negative? Why? You gotta give a reason if you're gonna say that. Okay, and that's mentioned in the article, right? So I'll get to you, Ariana, I'll call you. So that's mentioned in the article, so maybe if these schools were combined, the wealthier students, wealthier students would look down on people who didn't have as much money as them. But in the argument against that is like, well, wouldn't wealthy students like gain some sort of empathy? I don't know. I need more personally, if I'm talking about my personal opinion, I need more evidence to support that. But Ariana, what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say it's a mix of both because like some people will learn how to like accept each other and be friendly, but some people will stay in those groups because they'll have like the follow the pass mentality.
Okay. So you're saying it's based on just like the human, like the individual, whether they'll go along with it or not, or be open to it or not, open to what could happen. I see what you're saying. All right, that is all I have for you. I do think I've learned a tremendous amount through being involved in this program. I've learned a lot about myself, but also about teaching. That sounds cliche, but it's true. Especially in my student teaching experience, I really had such a great mentor that helped to ground me, level me, and prepare me for the experiences that I'll have ahead. But then I also have some theoretical knowledge, a lot of theoretical knowledge about what is the best way to teach kids that I'll combine with the work I've been doing, the day-to-day work I've been doing in the classroom. So I'm going to take all these experiences and do what I can with them.